What made you decide to return to Dumb and Dumber with Dumb and Dumber 2? You missed the previous sequel that was done, and now you decided there was still something you wanted to explore there. When did you start thinking about that, and why?
The previous one was a prequel, and didn't have Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels in it, and so we had no interest in making a Dumb and Dumber story without Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels. So we had absolutely nothing to do with that. We probably would have done this a number of times over the last 20 years just because we love the first one. We love working with those guys. We have such respect for those two actors, and we love the characters. But it was just a matter of getting everyone, in line at the right time. And finally, after 20 years, it just seems to have taken place. It was actually about 5 years ago, right?
Yeah,
Jim called him.
Jim was in a hotel and he watched it it was on TV, and he flipped the tube on, watched it straight through, and he thought, we got to do another one. And it was the only one that we ever thought would be a good sequel. We didn't want to do a sequel to any of our other movies, but this one.
Including something about Mary.
Yeah, something about Mary had an ending. It just felt like a money grab doing a sequel to that. Like, it would have been, you get paid more and people might have gone, but it wasn't a natural sequel. We left them exactly where we had found them in the beginning of the first one. They had not grown. They had no girlfriends, no jobs, and they were going back to the same place. It just seemed very logical to pick up from there.
So you had no script in place when Jim called you and said, let's do this?
No. I couldn't write a script not knowing it's going to get made, that movie, because it's too much work. And once he did say he wanted to do it, then we really, there's a high bar with Dumb and Dumber. It's elevated. When that movie came out, it got shitty reviews, by the way. Some good, but mostly not. And but over the years, it's kind of risen in stature, and we just didn't want to disappoint people and have something that's just like half-assed. So we took about a year and a half to work on that script to get it right, and you couldn't do that if you weren't sure it was going to get made.
But also the story that we told in the second one has to do with that it's been 20 years. So if we couldn't have written that 5 years ago or 10 years ago because it wouldn't have made sense.
What ideas or premises did you think of and reject?
Being in an writing room, for anybody who writes probably knows, it's kind of blurry once you get past them. But I remember one, there was going to be talk about, somebody suggested maybe Jim's sister is missing, and they have to go find her. But then there was never a reference to Jim's sister in the first one.
Yeah, it didn't feel organic. We did want to get them probably back out on the road just because they had a road trip the first time, and it just feels like the road is good for Harry and Lloyd. It opens up things, and things can happen. So I think we did probably have that in our mind, is that we wanted to get them back out traveling. That's why, what are they looking for? They're looking for a sister? We're like, well, we never mentioned a sister, so it didn't make sense. But like Pete says.
So now they go looking for a daughter, and is the premise of the...
Yeah, but it was from a woman that was brought up in the first one, Freda Felcher, who we know they'd both been with. So right away you're like, okay, what's going on there? And we tried to tie in, Billy from 4C and all the people that were.
Did you approach Jeff Daniels before you wrote and say, "Look, are you on board with this if we write?"
Oh, sure, yeah, we wanted to know that Jeff was in too, but Jeff, he does such serious acting in so many of his, the jobs that he takes, is that I think he was always eager to play the Harry Dunn again, just because it's such a departure for him, and he has fun with it.
And wasn't Jennifer Lawrence meant to be in a scene in this film?
There was a rumor about that because when we were shooting Dumb and Dumber 2, they were also shooting the Hunger Games down in Atlanta, and she was a big Dumb and Dumber fan, so one night we all went out to dinner, and then that just a rumor.
Oh, so she didn't shoot a scene that was then cut?
No. And by the way, she's a very good kisser. Because
yes, tell us more about this.
I saw her making out with her boyfriend. She knows what she's doing. Really does.
But she wasn't in a scene that was cut. She wasn't in a scene that was then that she then wanted cut.
No,